Assalamu alaikum students, welcome back to our series of lessons on the parts of speech. And I'm your teacher Darkshan Dildar. Today our lesson will be all about verbs from 4th class onwards. So in this lesson I'll teach you the different types of verbs that we have in English and also show you how to avoid some common mistakes that students make with verbs. So we'll start with state and action verbs. Then we'll look at main and helping verbs. Then we'll turn to regular and irregular verbs, and finally we'll discuss transitive and intransitive verbs, inshallah. Now let's begin. So first of all, as you can see in the image, what is a verb? Well, a verb is just a word that shows an action or a state. State means a situation, which we have already discussed in our previous lesson. And actually those are the two types of verbs. We call them state verbs and action verbs. Sometimes they are stative and dynamic verbs, but the meaning is the same. Okay, what's the difference between these two? The difference is that action verbs express physical activities or processes. For example, verbs like kick, shout, run, climb, stand, sit, grow. All of these show us physical activities. But a state verb is the verb that expresses a situation. For example, verbs like be, have, think, like, own are state verbs. Now, when I say I have a large family, here I'm using the state verb have. That means I'm not talking about doing any physical activity. I'm just telling you about situation. In this case, about my family. Or if I said, Julia likes chocolate ice cream, which is our second example. So, is Julia doing any action in this sentence? No. This sentence just gives us some information about Julia. We are still using a verb like, but it's a state verb. So, why is this difference important? And is it important at all? Yes, it's because there is an important rule in English you should know, and that rule is state verbs can be used in ing, cannot be used in ing continuous forms. Means when you want to use a continuous form, you can only do that with action verbs. So let's look at a couple of examples from action verbs. Now we can say the children are playing in the park, and or who is shouting, because the verbs, okay, who is shouting, both of these sentences are correct because the verbs play and shout are physical actions. So we can use ing continuous form with them. But we cannot say I'm having a large family or Julia is liking chocolate ice cream. No, both of these sentences are wrong. These are common mistakes that students make. Some students using ing forms with state verbs. Please don't make that mistake, and remember, no continuous forms with state verbs. Okay, let's now move on. We'll talk about main and helping verbs. These are sometimes called auxiliary verbs as well. So when a verb is used in a sentence, it can be used in two ways. It can either be used as main verb of the sentence, or it can be a helping verb. For example, it can help the main verb. The most important helping verbs are be, do, and have. As you can see the image. Okay. So let's look at some examples with these. Luciano is working now. In this sentence, there are two types of verbs. There are two verbs, in fact. Can you tell me which are these two verbs? Is, working are the two verbs. Which is the main verb? The main verb is working because that shows the action that's happening. So what about is? What is it doing? Is a helping verb that shows the tense of the sentence. We know that Luciano is working now because we said is. If I said Luciano was working, I'm talking about the past. So that helping verb is showing the tense, and that's one of the things that helping verbs can do. They can also help us to form negative sentences. For example, Luciano isn't working now. For questions, is Luciano working now? As you can see in the image, in all the three of these sentences, the helping verb is be or to be. We are saying is, but that's just a form of the verb too. We say I am, you are, he is, she is, etc. The verbs do and have can also be helping verbs. For example, I don't play golf every weekend. As you can see on the screen, maybe I'm talking to my friend. My friend said, hey, you play golf every weekend, right? And I said, no, I don't play golf every weekend. I play tennis. So don't is the do not. That is a negative form of the verb. Do and helps me to make a negative sentence, or my friends could ask, do you play golf every weekend? That's a question. Let's look at an example with the verb have. We have visited UK 4 times. So in this sentence, we know that main verb is visited. But can you tell me what is the purpose of using have in this sentence? Now, if I tell you, we visited the UK last year, in that sentence I'm talking about one single experience. That is my visit last year. But when I say we have visited the UK 4 times, then I'm not talking about any single experience, but I'm talking about life experience. That is in our lives. We have visited the UK 4 times. That's what the verb have helps us to do in this sentence. Okay, so that's how be, do and have are used as helping verbs. But take a look at this next sentence. We have a car. Now both of these sentences use the verb have. But do you notice a difference between them? The difference is that the first sentence uses have as a helping verb, but the second sentence uses have as the main verb. Now you might be thinking, how's that possible? Because have is a helping verb, right? True, but in some cases be, do and have can be used as main verbs. Now in this sentence, have is used to mean own. We own a car is what I'm saying. We have a car, we own a car. So in that way, in some cases these can be used as a main verbs, but most of the time they are used as helping verbs. So I hope that state and action verbs, main and helping verbs are all clear to you. Inshallah, in our next class we'll study the other types of verbs as well. Till then, thank you.